Okay, this is kind of a recap before we leave for the 3-day weekend. Solving the equation. There's two answers. Okay. Now, are there any other x's not to the second? Okay. Yeah, right there. So you have to make sure your equation's set and then set up your factoring boxes. Okay. So it's set. Now there's two terms here, so two, I'd look for a greatest common factor, and then I see if I have a difference of perfect squares. I might cross a box out, but at least this is what I'm paying attention to. So negative x and then the GCF are the three things I'm looking for. So we have a negative in front, so we need negative. X is on both of them, so we need x. And then 3 and 30, here's 3. Here's 30, so 3 is the GCF. So negative 3x, wrap it up. Now divide by negative 3x, and the x's always cancel on that last division. Okay, that's 1x, and then negative divided by negative is plus 10. So if I have a plus out of here, it's not a DOPS. I know that. And if x isn't to an even power, it can't be a DOPS either. So that's your F1, that's your F2, now solve. So negative 3x could equal 0, or 1x plus 10 could equal 0. So divide by negative 3, and that takes you to 0. Then I subtract 10, which is negative 10. I don't need to divide by 1. That's your answer. Okay, next problem. There are two answers, okay? Now, you obviously have, that's because you have x to the second. Do you have any x that isn't to the second? Yup, right there. So again, you have to use your set factoring boxes. Set factoring. So set, and now I factor. I'm factoring three terms, so that would be looking for the greatest common factor. But instead of the DOPS, we would do our T table. Okay, negative x and GCF. Negative, nope. X, not on 60, so nope. 1, 7, and 60 is 1. So if it's just 1, I don't do it. So I take 1 times negative 60. That's negative 60. So on a negative, we'd want a minus, and we're trying to get them to come to positive 7. 60 minus 1 is not 7. 2 and 30, that's not 7. 3 and 20, not 7. 4 and 15, not 7. 60 divided by 5 is 12, that's 7. Now they got to come to positive 7, so positive 12. And whenever my number up here is negative, the signs are opposite, okay? So negative. Okay, now my A. A is 1x to the second, okay? So I can forget about the 1, and I can just make two parentheses with x minus 5 times x plus 12. And there's no GCF to drop down, so these are the two factors. Okay, so x minus 5 could equal 0, or x plus 12 could equal 0. So I add 5 to get 5 as my first solution, and then negative minus 12 to get negative 12 as my second. Okay, moving along. 3x to the second power plus 29x minus 44. There are two answers. We also have an x in this equation that isn't to the second, so we have to do the set boxes. We can't get the x squared by itself. Well, you could, but you would get nowhere. So we're set. There's three terms, so that would be greatest common factor. And then my factoring table, the trinomial table. Negative x GCF. Okay, GCF, there's no negative in front. There's not x on everything. Now 3, 29, 44. So here's 3. Here's the only row that contains 3, and 29 ain't there. Okay, so it's going to be a 1 GCF. So we get rid of it. A, B, C. Now don't get freaked out here. I'm not going to put you through anything I don't think you can handle. Times negative 44 is negative 132. So I got a negative. So that's a minus trying to come to positive 29. 132. No, that's 131. Divide by 2, and you're going to get 66. Not even close. Way too high. 3 and 44. 44 minus 3 is 41. Nope. Now divide by 4, and you get 33. Now what's 33 minus 4? That'd be 29. So it's got to come to positive 29. So plus, and then a negative up there means the signs are opposite. Okay? It doesn't mean just put a negative on that. Okay? It means the signs are opposite. Yeah, I did put a negative, but if that one would have been negative, that one would have been positive. Now my A is 3x squared. Okay, now since that's not a 1, we need a more resourceful way. You can't just go, you're going to go 3x this time, and then minus 4 and plus 33. Now 3 and 4, the only GCF they share is 1, so dividing by 1's dumb, they just stay the same. 3 and 33, well those share the same row of 3, so that's your greatest common factor. That's 1x plus 11. Okay, there's no GCF, so equals 0, and these are my two factors. So 3x minus 4 equals 0, or 1x plus 11 could equal 0. So I add 4. Now, if I divide 4 by 3, I get a really long decimal, and it's not a story problem, so I'm going to write 4 over 3. And then I minus, you can put a decimal if you want, negative 11. I don't need to divide by 1. Okay, now be careful on the next one. There's 2 answers, but do you have any x's that are not to the second power? No, you don't. Then you are simply going to get x squared by itself, and then find the number times itself that equals what I come up with. So I undo all operations with the x squared. So I undo the minus plus first, and that takes me to 9. Then I undo the times. 9 divided by 4 is 2.25. Now it's a decimal, that's okay. So obviously I'm not going to find that on my chart, so I find what the square root of 2.25 is. So I go second, fourth key up, 2.25, 1.5. And the other answer would be negative 1.5. So again, I have 2 answers. If I don't have if I don't have any x's not to the second power, then I can just get the x squared by itself using inverse operations. Okay. Next problem. 2 answers. Do we have any x's not to the second power? Yeah, right there. So again, I need to do the set factoring. I don't do x squared equals. You're not set though. So you're going to add 4x. You can't add that to either one of these, so that hangs out here. You minus 8, and you can take that away from the 4. So 3x squared comes first, then the plus 4x, and then whatever 4 minus 8 is, which is negative 4. It always has to go x squared x non-x. Now you're set. Now you factor. There's 3 terms. So GCF, and then my table. Negative x GCF. Okay, I don't need a negative. I don't need x. GCF 3, 4, and 4. Yeah, that'd just be 1. So 3 times negative 4 takes me to negative 12. So that's a minus, trying to get us to 4 positive. Okay, 1 and 12, no. 2 and 6, you bet. So that's plus on 6. and another negative up there, meaning they're opposite. I wish I'd get a positive so I could. Okay, A. Now what is our A? Well, it ain't 1. That's all I need to know. Okay, it's a 3. So I go start. It's going to be 3x minus 2 and 3x plus 6. Okay, 3 and 2, the GCF's 1, so that remains the same. 3 and 6, the GCF is 3. Okay, and these are my two factors. 3x minus 2 times 1x plus 2 equals 0. So 3x minus 2 could equal 0, or 1x plus 2 could equal 0. So I add 2. That's 2. Divide by 3, that doesn't work out well, so I just 2/3. Then I subtract 2. That's negative 2. Don't really need to divide by 1. Okay, 3x to the third, that's a third power, not a fifth. Sorry, it's crappy writing. Plus 30x to the second minus 33x equals 0. So that means we have 3 answers. Now, do I have any x's not to the third? Indeed, I do. So I got to do the set factoring. Okay, so there's 3 terms. So it'd be greatest common factor. And then my t table. Okay. Negative x GCF. Don't need the negative. I do need x though, because the last term has x. 3, 30, and 33. Well, there's the only row with 3. Is 30 there? Yup. Is 33? Yup. So 3 will work. So 3x is out. Now divide each one of these by 3x. And the x's just go away completely in the last one. Not on the other two, though. So that's going to be 1x to the second plus 10x minus 11. Okay, so now I go to my table. So 1 times negative 11 is negative 11, so it's a minus trying to get to positive 10. Well, it doesn't take long. What's 11 minus 1? 10. Got to come to positive 10, so positive. And a negative means the signs are the opposite. So it's minus 1 plus 11. Now your A. Your A is not up here. You don't look at. Your A is right here. So the A is 1x to the second. So ditch the 1. I wouldn't want that. So it's x minus 1 times x plus 11. And then that GCF's important, okay? It has an x, so I need 3 answers. So that's F1, F2, F3. So 3x could equal 0. X minus 1 could equal 0. X plus 11 could equal 0. So I divide out 3, and that's 0. I add a 1, that's 1. I subtract an 11, and that's negative 11. Okay, next problem. There's 3 answers again. Do you have any x's that are not to that highest power? Yes, okay, so I need to do the set factoring. Unfortunately, most of these we have to set it and factor it. Okay, it's set, but there's only 2 terms, so 2 terms is the greatest common factor. And then seeing if I have a difference of perfect squares. Okay, negative x GCF. Well, negative ain't there in the front. X I need. Now 1 and 121 is 1, but since it's 1x, it's got to be dealt with. X's cancel and less. Now if I divide an x third by an x, all that happens is it goes to the second, and then minus the 121, because... Now, DOPS, okay? You have the subtraction, and you got x to the second. That's very important that we have x, x. Now, 121's here, so that's 11 times 11. and then the 1 is 1 and 1. Okay, you could actually ditch the 1, just go x, x, but that's fine. Mr. Larson actually likes that better. And the 1x here goes here. So, F1, F2, F3. So 1x could equal 0. 1x plus 11 could equal 0. 1x minus 11 could equal 0. So we divide by 1, I get 0. I subtract 11, I get negative 11. Don't need to divide by 1. And then I add 11, and that's 11. Okay, last equation for the story problems. There's 3 answers. So do you have any x's not to the third? Obviously. Okay, so it's again set factoring. So you're set, but you got 4 terms. Well, that's a different process. You go grouping. You factor by grouping. Then after the grouping's been factored, you see if you have a difference of perfect squares. Okay, so grouping, parentheses plus parentheses, line parentheses plus line parentheses, and then line parentheses, put a parentheses in that line though. So we have 1x to the power of 3 minus 11x to the power of 2. And then we move on to negative 9x plus 99. Okay, negative x GCF, but I'm just I'm pairing them. So negative I don't need here, but I'll need it here. X, I'll need it here, and second power is the final one, so I need second power. I don't need x here. 1 and 11 is 1. 9 and 99. Let's go find 9. There's 99. Okay, so 9 will work. So here I factor out 1x to the second, and here I factor out negative 9. Okay, so 1 divided by 1 is 1. That goes down to an x now because you're taking 2 away from that. And then these cancel. And this will be the same thing, positive 1x, and then minus 11. So my parentheses are identical. That's what I pull out there. And I have 1x to the second minus 9. Okay, now the x without the second power is a factor. And there we go. I just dropped that down. Now the dots is where we have the x to the even power. And it's minus. And 9, obviously, 3 times 3. And then 1, 1, 1. So 1x plus 3, 1x minus 3, F2, F3. Okay, so 1x minus 11 could equal 0. 1x plus 3 could equal 0. 1x minus 3 could equal 0. So I add 11. That takes me to 11. I minus 3. Takes me to negative 3. Then I add 3. And that takes me to positive 3. Okay, now story problem time. A missile is shot close to the ground from close to the ground with a velocity of 128 feet per second. After how many seconds does it hit its ground target? So this is a graph because a missile goes like that. So the 2 units that relate are the feet and the seconds. Seconds is x, feet's y. So feet per second, I have 128. It's a parabola. Now, it doesn't say anything before 128, so I assume it started at 0 feet. And it ended at 0 feet, too. The target's on the ground. So I need kind of a big box to deal with a parabola. Parabolas have x to the second plus blank x plus blank equals y. So in this blank's the gravity, and that's negative 16. And this blank's the feet per second, which is 128. And this blank's the starting height, so 0, so delete that. You don't need that. And then 0 feet takes the place of the y. Okay. So I got to solve for x. It has 2 answers, but it also has an x not to the second power. So we need to set, which it is, and then factor. There's just two terms, though, so greatest common factor, and then seeing if I have a difference of perfect squares would be the go-to here. Okay, GCF, negative x GCF. Now, we want the negative now because that's negative. You're also going to want x because both your terms have x. Now, I realize that my chart doesn't go to 16. It's called tough it out. Bring the 16 up here and break it into its factors. 1/16. If I would divide 16 by 2, I get 8. If I divide 16 by 3, I get a decimal. If I divide 16 by 4, I get 4. As soon as I get twin factors or I divide by a factor that I already have, it's done. Now guess on your calculator. See if 128 divides by 16. Yep, it does. So that's your GCF. You break if you can't use your table, you take the smallest number, break it into its factors, and then see what it'll divide by. Just like when I've made you do this to begin with. Okay, so that's 1x, and that's 8, so minus 8. Now we have a minus, but the x isn't even to the power. Okay, so can't be adopted unless the x has an even power. Okay, so the F1, F2 can be found here. F1, F2. So negative 16x could equal 0, or 1x minus 8 could equal 0. So we divide by negative 16, and that's 0. And then we add 8, and that would be 8. I don't need to divide it by 1. The higher answer is the one I put over here to figure it out. 8 seconds. Okay, find the shaded regions area. Whenever we're dealing with shapes, down here is where we're going to use our equation. Okay, and my job is to find what that is. So it's 7 length times width. That's how to find a rectangle. But the width is x. I don't know x. Also, if you have x here, I would put it over here. Now, focus now on the area you do know. So you use 80 as your equals. Now, how do you get that? It's a rectangle, so it's multiplying the length by the width. So let's simplify the length and the width. Length would be 1x plus 2, while our width would be 1x. So 1x times 1x and 2 times 1x. So that's 1x second, and that's 2x. Now, none of these are like terms, so I just write down here 1x second plus 2x. Okay, so again, it's like a puzzle. To know the area, I got to find the x, but the only area I know is here, so that's why that's my equals. Length times width. Solve for x now. There's 2 answers. Again, we've also got an x not to the second, so I need to set and factor. Minus 80. That can go here. So I have 1x second plus 2x minus 80 equals 0. 3 terms again. Most of the story again. So GCF and table this time instead of DOPS. Negative x GCF. Don't have the negative. Don't have x on everything. 1, 2, and 80 is 1. 1 times negative 80 is negative 80, and that's a minus, trying to get to 2 positive. Nope. Nope. 3 is a decimal. 4 and 20, nope. 5 and 16, nope. That's 11. I'm getting close. 6 a decimal. 80 divided by 7. 80 divided by 8 is 10. Bingo. 2's plus. Negative minus. Now my A is 1. That's good. So I can just ignore the 1 and write x minus 8 times x plus 10 equals 0. No GCF that I did. If there is, I just bring it down here, but there's not. Okay, so x minus 8 could equal 0, or x plus 10 could equal 0. So I add an 8 to both sides, I get 8. I minus a 10 from both sides, I get negative 10. Okay, so 8 is the one we want to put up here, and 7 times 8 is 56. And on a test, I will have that length times width there for you. Okay. But again, you're not going to know the x, okay? So you use the area you do know, make a length times width construction, and solve for x. Okay, last problem. You throw a ball into the air with a velocity of 46 feet per second. The ball leaves your hand when it's 6 feet above the ground. After how many seconds does the ball land on the ground? So I'm finding the seconds. Kind of the same as the first one, but the problem is going to be worked differently due to some things that arise. So feet per second is 46. Well, the first thing I notice is before the 46 feet per second, it left his hand 6 feet above the ground. So 6 feet's your beginning height, and it lands on the ground, 0 feet. So that's my gravity. Any parabola, this is how we format the equation. So negative 16, 46, and then my initial height is 6. And then 0 feet takes the place of the y. Now you have to find the two answers for the x variable, now that y is out. And you also have an x not to the second. Okay, so you have to use the set factoring. Your set, now factor. GCF and table. Negative x GCF. Negative x on everything, nope. GCF. Now again, you can't be a wuss here, okay? Well, actually you could be, because 6 is a small enough number where that's there, and yeah, I'm not seeing 16 or 46. It's 1. No. That is not going to work, okay? On these story problems, to do GCFs, you take your smallest number, break it up, and see what you can divide by. You can't divide by 6. 46 divided by 3. No, that won't work. 46 won't divide by 3. 2. They're all even, so you know it's 2. On a story problem, how about we just trust GCF, we take the smaller number, break it up. So it's positive 8x second minus 23x minus 3. And the ABC is here. Now remember, my A is there. So once I find it, I got to be prepared. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. So it's a minus to try to come to 23 negative. There it is. So we got minus 24, and the negative up there means they cannot match signs, plus. Now your A is 8x to the second, so you need to make a couple sets here, because that 8's got to be broken down. Plus 1. So that one will stay the same. And 8 and 24. Now, I understand that they're both in 4's row, but they're also both in 8's row. It's called greatest common factors. You have to divide by 8. That's 1x minus 3. Now, your negative 2 factor should come down here, but since there's no x in there, that doesn't really help me get one of my answers. Okay, so 8x plus 1 equals 0, or 1x minus 3 is 0. So I minus 1, divide by 8. You can divide that or just leave it negative 1/8. We know that's not the higher answer, though. The higher answer is 3. Okay, so 3 seconds is the answer.